What's up, guys? Coach Jared with the Richman Elite Podcast. This is our second, third, however you want to look at it, go around to this podcast. So please appreciate this one because we've used up 2 of Zach's days here. Speaking of Zach,
spring break.
Yeah, he's on spring break, so this is the time to do it. But I feel bad we've used up 2 of his days. So yeah, this is my good friend Zach Murphy. Zach is one of the more educated people we've ever had on this podcast with a master's degree in kinesiology.
XPhys.
Yeah. Same thing. No. He's had multiple years of experience in the strength conditioning, fitness world, and he was a collegiate baseball player to go along with that. So a lot of experience in a lot of different things that, involve the same things that we do here at Rep. So it's kind of cool to get his perspective on things. But yeah, we'll start it off with kind of giving us the spiel, Zach, that you've probably already given the podcast yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's pretty well rehearsed. But yeah, I mean, I've always just liked moving. So I think when I set out on this journey to figure out what I wanted to be, it was always, how can I move? How can I help those, right? And so where I'm at now makes a lot of sense when you hear my background. But when I was a kid, we just moved a lot. I was fortunate that we didn't grow up in the era where iPads were everything. You had TVs, you had the VCR. Remember those?
You had to put it in.
You had to put it in.
Sometimes you had to wind it back when it wouldn't rewind, or you had to manually do that.
Mm-hmm.
They broke all the time too.
All the time, yeah.
Blow them out, or no? That was what was the Nintendo 64?
See, I never got one of those. I got to play it down the road when I was older, but we never. I think I had the GameCube. I was a GameCube kid. That was my first device.
2 years younger than me. That's why.
Did you ever have a Game Boy?
Oh yeah. Pokemon.
I had those.
Lots of Pokemon.
Oh yeah. But anyway, fortunate not to have the iPad thing where I think sometimes kids are really glued to that. But a lot of what we did as kids was just we were outside. My family has a little hobby farm, I guess you could call it, in Burlington, Iowa, and so we did a lot of chores. We had some cattle that we had to tend to. And just enough to kind of stay busy. It wasn't a farm that you necessarily make a whole lot off of. It was more of a farm where you build a lot of memories and learn a lot of life lessons, I think. Bale hay, that was a big one. Build a lot of character. Baling hay, that if you've never done that, that's a life experience.
Do you think that contributed to your strength?
I don't know. I mean, sure, but I think there's other things, in my upbringing that probably contributed to that. I went into the weight room at a fairly young age with my dad and was always interested in the idea of moving weight, but I don't think it hurt. I can tell you that much. But anyway, so we moved a lot, and I was always really interested in just a lot of things. And so I think where I can really give my parents a lot of credit is they didn't say no a lot to activities. We tried a lot of things. Of course, you have the baseball, the basketball, the football, but we did a lot of niche things too. We did a little gymnastics. Nothing too advanced, but if I wanted to try it, the answer was almost always yes, as long as it was within a drivable range and it was reasonable, right? So did a little roller skating too along the way, which if you don't experiment, then you never know, right?
Did you go to a skate park?
Oh yeah, well, so we had an indoor one that was fairly close.
Skate land or
Kenny's Roller Ranch, still around to this day.
Wow.
I think the ownership's the same. I think the skates are the same.
Kenny?
Well, it's one of the Kennys. I don't know how many Kennys there are, but a Kenny's there.
All right.
Anyway, we would do that, and not that I played any frisbee golf. I played a little bit. Wasn't really for me, but we tried that too. So anything I wanted to do.
You said horseshoes too, right?
We did. Yes, anything, right? So there's a little horseshoe throwing. It's just curiosity, man. Maybe I only did it once or twice. No, well, we actually had a set that we found out of the farm. My grandparents are, I wouldn't say hoarders per se, but they've got a lot of storage out there.
Yeah.
And so we found a set once, and so we put that up, and we gave that a go, and we played a lot of yard volleyball and spike ball when that became popular. So, and now, of course, I like pickleball and golf, and so there's just always something, right? And I think that's just the evolution of an athlete. You want to test yourself in a lot of capacities.
Yep.
Anyway, so growing up, once the experimental phase was kind of done, I found myself to really enjoy baseball, basketball, and then football was kind of one of those that I think I enjoyed it more so for the camaraderie. A lot of my friends did it, so I felt like, hey, that's something that I can give a try. Ended up loving it. I gave it up my freshman year, and I kind of just let baseball and basketball be my go-to sports, and played those throughout high school. Then my senior year, I was like, man, I'm really missing out on football. Just not even like, I'm not even sure it's the game itself that I miss, rather just the fall experience of, suffering with your best friends, and, having all of those moments, the pep rallies, the parades, the, after practice BS sessions, we'd call them, in the parking lot. You'd sit there for an hour and a half doing nothing but just messing around, running around, talking, or going out to, there's an Applebee's right by our school, so we'd go afterwards quite a bit for half apps and shut that place down. But if I could go back, I wish I would have played more. Not that I think my career arc would have been any different. I was either built for a small linebacker or a running back, and I wasn't, fantastic at either. But I had the build, so maybe 3 more years of experience, who knows? But we had some pretty talented guys around us. So once I got done with high school, it was always, baseball, baseball, baseball. I kind of identified that from my freshman year, and I think that's just because I'd spent so much time experimenting with it. In my house, we had a half-finished basement, and like I said, I was a kid that moved a lot, and so what I kind of find myself doing was, how can I get better at this one sport by myself? And so I did a lot of things by myself, a lot of experimenting, and we had this plank wood wall with the little radiator covers on the bottom, and I would throw a racquetball just for hours against this wall, to the point where either I'd knock the radiator cover off, or I'd somehow bust out a light above, and usually somebody yells down, "What are you doing down there?" But if that's the worst I was going to get into, that's not too bad. Anyway, so I started experimenting with that, and I was like, this is kind of my thing. I really like playing, and going back a little bit, that was the one sport we did a little extra of. So like basketball, I played on a travel team, but it was very seasonal. It was like, hey, it's the winter time, basketball, travel, and then I took that up into middle school and high school. Whereas baseball, it was like, here's a travel team, probably play on the city team, Little League. Then we had Babe Ruth, and then it went into high school, then it went into camps, it went into showcases, a couple extra lessons here or there. So that was always my, hey, I think this is what I want to do. For me, I think, if I'm looking back on it, and we talked about this yesterday, so much of my focus was the stats. And I think that's one piece of the game, but not really that important if you're going to go far. I mean, yes, you need to go far. You need to have good stats if you're going to go far. But if you focus on the other pieces, the work and the environment and winning for others around you and working for others around you, the stats kind of follow. And so for me, I kind of let that, be my driving force, and that kind of got me to a interesting situation my freshman year of college, where I ended up at a school that it wasn't for me. It was an NAIA school. They'd offered me the most to go there, and I was like, well, of course I got to go there, right? They've got a good baseball program. They played in a conference called the GPAC out in Nebraska. It was in Fremont, Nebraska, 6 hours away, and that was the only thing I knew about that school, is they had good baseball, and so I was like, well, I'm going to go there and do baseball. For the major, looks like they've got athletic training and, a track to get me pre-physical therapy, and okay, great, like that doesn't matter right now, which in hindsight mattered quite a bit. Get there, and, I'm one of 80 or 90 dudes. I mean, there's just bodies everywhere. And the thing with NAIA, for those that don't know, is they get a lot of their enrollment from athletics.
Because they offer these scholarships.
They call it an athletic scholarship.
So I have an analogy. I always say NAIA is kind of like Target, where they tell you it's on sale, but it's always on sale. Everybody gets the sale. You
Right.
just feel good about it, though. It makes you feel good. She's like,
Yeah.
Becca, my wife, she'll come home and be like, what did you buy today? And she'll be like, it was 20% off. I had to do it. And it's like, it's always 20% off.
Right.
That's kind of NAIA,
That's
right?
NAIA. I mean, really, really good product. I mean, some of the guys that I was going up against, it was wild. You'd have a really good 18-year-old, and then you might have a 26-year-old that took a 4-year break, was at a Division I school, got kicked off. He's got a full beard, 2 kids, and the guy balls. Like, it is so wild. I mean, the amount of like stories that I heard from how guys got to that point, it's just like, what? Like, what kind of life are you living? I mean, there's this guy that I was not aware I was going there. Maybe would have changed my mind, but he was a catcher just like me, and he was a stud, man. But he was 24, 25, and still had 2 years of eligibility left. And he had a better pop time from his knees than I did standing up.
I mean, he was a man, though.
He was,
he
was a full-grown man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and I was like, well, this is something. So because I went there for the baseball thing, and baseball wasn't necessarily what I thought it was going to be, I kind of found myself, kind of stuck, right? And so I think I really got into weightlifting a few years prior, knowing that, hey, if you want to go far, that you're going to have to do something else, right? There's always that next tier, that next level that an athlete needs to kind of follow. And so while I was there, I kind of got obsessed with the weight room a little bit, and that was kind of my outlet, because my previous outlet was a baseball field. Kind of lost that, right? When you have 80-plus dudes, and the regulations are pretty loose, and so you'd have some practices that might be, upwards of 4 or 5 hours starting at 8, 9 p.m., going till midnight or 1 a.m., and it was kind of the Wild West. I mean, we played a lot of games, so, I can't say that I didn't get a good playing experience. I mean, I think we were upwards of 60. I mean, they just play. And you just play, and you play, and somebody calls and says, hey, you want to play? Yeah, we'll play. I mean, you're playing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many games a week. But I kind of found, my safe haven in the weight room. And like I said, I wasn't concerned about what my major was. So that wasn't fantastic either, because, I was still thinking that was the path.
It was all baseball.
But I wasn't enjoying it, but it was all baseball. And so if you're going that pre-physical therapy route, a lot of the classes that you're going to take prior to are just, pretty science heavy. And so there's a lot of the chemistries and the biologies, and those are fine. I find them interesting, but not like, the end all be all. And they're to weed kids out. And so I think I had a physics as well. And so it was like, man, like I'm not having a good time. So I do what I need to do. And then, hey, I got to go to the weight room. I got to go. Because if I didn't go, mentally it wasn't going to be a good day. And that's where I really got interested into, not just going in and finding a couple of machines or, watching a YouTube video. I watched, and I'm sure a lot of people did growing up, Steve Cook, Jay Cutler, they're kind of the first on the YouTube scene. Ronnie had some stuff out there. And so I was like, well, yeah, look at these guys.
I was going to like Christian Guzman and Max Tuning. And yeah.
And so I had found their stuff. But then I found, a little more of that sport performance side of things. And so I was like, this is kind of interesting. And so I kind of followed that and got really interested in what we were doing in the weight room as a team. And I was like, and I was always asking our coaches, the questions that you wouldn't really get from somebody who was just there to lift. Like I was genuinely curious, like, why are we doing, this rep scheme right now at this point of the season? Not that I thought it was wrong. I was just curious, right? So fast forward a little bit, that experience is wasn't for me. So I call one of my good buddies, Blake, and I'm like, hey man, I know you're at Loris. How's that? Because I need a change. Like 6 hours from home. Not that it was necessarily the distance, but like when other things aren't going well, sometimes you just want to be able to go home. We'd have an off weekend, and I recall it, so vividly. We'd have practice until, let's say, 9 p.m. on a Friday, but we'd have Saturday, Sunday off. I would hop in the car, full uniform, and I'd drive 6 hours to Burlington, just straight, just on pure adrenaline. Get me home. And it was awful. Like that's never an experience you want to have.
You're right.
So I make the switch to Loris my sophomore year, and I couldn't have been happier with how that went, because I finally had a different perspective. Right, I had found something I was interested in. That interest became strength and conditioning. What happens to the body? Right, that's what kinesiology is, which is what I got my bachelor's in at Loris. Is like what happens to the body when it's moving. Right, when you jump, what happens? When you run, what happens? When you go run 800 meters and you're really tired after, well, why? Right? Why does it feel like my legs are burning? That stuff was like, oh man, like this is cool. And so I kind of pivoted from the pre-physical therapy route, not because I didn't think it was a good career for me, but I kind of thought it was the only career, right? Because, and we had mentioned this yesterday, as an athlete, if you think about the after, well, I want to say in sports, right? Like, it's my identity. I'm an athlete, man. So I got to go athletic training, right? Maybe I go physical therapy, right? And for some people, that's the right path. But for me, it just, it wasn't. And I had done all the right things. I think I was a rehab tech at the local hospital back home for 5-6 years. Like I had all my hours. I had consulted my uncle who's a physical therapist for, countless hours, and I knew that life.
Mm-hmm.
But it, kind of clicked, and it was, a pretty cool moment that I guess you read about or hear about of like, oh, the light bulb went off and this is what I want to do. And not that I didn't enjoy baseball anymore. I did. I loved it. But it was like, hey, there's an end game here. And I think that's the beauty of Division III is like you really get some, not that there's not bright-minded individuals anywhere else. Not saying that for one bit, but they usually are, these kids or student athletes are going in with a bigger picture than somebody who's going just for a sport.
Yeah,
right?
they don't. They're not under like a delusion that they're maybe going pro when they're not. Right, like they understand that this is just part of the experience. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that's where I was always meant to be. And so, getting there with having 3 years left really was kind of a blessing. I mean, I could have found it, with 1 year left, and wish I did it sooner, but only missing 1 year, and I don't know that I would have had the same perspective if I didn't take the path I took, right? And so I'm not sure I would change anything, but I do think I would have told myself, like, hey, like, there is a different end game, and you need to prepare for that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's great if you, write out the baseball thing or whatever your sport is, write it out. I mean, you do it until you can't do it anymore. But you got to be able to have something else that you fall back on, right?
Well, you don't want to be a one-dimensional person either.
Right. Yeah,
right? I think that's
so true.
When you, I don't know, for me even, like when you start losing your sport, you start kind of losing your identity,
mm-hmm.
and then it's like, hey, like, is this really all I'm good at or all I know? Like, I can't even talk to people about other things because I'm so, even I went to a trivia night the other night with my wife, and I'm like, man, I'm a freaking moron. Like, these guys know the answer to all these questions, and I'm like, why do I not know any of these? It's because I'm a dumb jock. Like, that's why. But, again, that's something I probably wish I would have learned a little bit sooner.
Right. But going back to the whole, Loris transition is, I get there and I, made it a priority of like, hey, I want to enjoy baseball again. I want to enjoy the classroom. I'm paying a crap ton of money. I need to have a good experience, right? So I take a lot of, pride in figuring out, all right, here are the classes, here's the path that I'm going. And I was really fortunate. It just kind of all clicked. I was like, hey, this kinesiology is, right up my alley. And even at the time I had a little doubt. I was like, well, if you still want to do the physical therapy thing, I was like, most people will take a kinesiology degree, and most of the classes covered there just transition right. I could still apply, right? And so I wasn't totally done with that idea, but once I got through that sophomore year, during that sophomore year, I had met a professor by the name of Dr. Beekler. Elena Beekler is her name, and she was exactly who I wanted to be. Not everything that she's done. She's a freak triathlete, endurance athlete. I mean, she's a beast, and she's a mom of 3, and she just ran like a 5-minute mile. I mean, she's just a freak. Mm-hmm. But what she represented was doing things that you maybe thought you wouldn't be doing outside of your sport, right? And so for me, that was, hey, I could teach. It's cool to be smart, right? Cool to do the research. It's cool to understand a wide variety of topics, but then still try to succeed at something outside of a collegiate sport. Mm-hmm. So for me now, I like doing CrossFit. CrossFit's not my identity, but it's how I challenge myself. Like, I like going and doing a workout. I like pushing. I like seeing how much I can lift, how far I can run. I'm not fantastic at all of them. I mean, you've seen me do Olympic lifts. It ain't pretty.
It's better than most people, like a lot of people.
But that's the whole thing of like, I really enjoy making myself that science experiment, because so much kinesiology is trying to understand what happens to the body. But in order to understand what happens to somebody else's body, in my opinion, you got to understand what happens to yours, right? And so we did a lot of, VO2 max tests, and we did some lactate tests, and we did, took our blood pressure, and that's when I was hooked. I was like, okay, like this is my thing, because not that I don't think physical therapy has a wide variety of ranges for your day, but in a lot of ways, sometimes everything is decided for you. Right. And like after you see so many total hips or total knees, it can be kind of fatiguing. And that's the Lord's work. I mean, I think physical therapists are fantastic. My fiance is an occupational therapist. And like I said, my uncle's a physical therapist. Those jobs are so needed. But I was like, I I don't think I get the same enjoyment if I did that as if I did, the path that I took.
Right.
So I go through Loris. I'm playing baseball. I'm enjoying baseball, loving baseball. And again, I'm starting to really take notice of like what happens in the strength conditioning world. Why are we doing what we're doing? And I'm starting to have an idea as to why. I'm learning. The track is really unique because you really get into the intensive courses, the kinesiology courses, like your junior and senior year. Like sophomore year, you start them, but junior year, it's like you're doing ex-phys, you're doing I can't remember if I did my anatomy. I think I did that sophomore year. I think I did ex-phys, strength and conditioning, a nutrition class. Like all the things are starting to add up, and you're starting to learn, and it's really cool. At least I thought it was really cool. We're learning about, how to write macro cycles and when you should be, working on strength for a sport, and why this exercise might be, advantageous for a baseball player, but wouldn't be advantageous for a cross-country runner, right? And like all these things, it's just clicking, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. So that gets me into wanting to. So we had to do some observational hours, and then we also had to do a program where I think it was a senior took us on as kind of their client, and they would program for us. And so I'm just immersed in this, and I started having a lot of conversations outside of class with this professor, Dr. Beekler, just of like, just racking her brain really of like, what can you do with this, and why would you do this, and why would you do that? And I see that you've got some seniors in the lab, like, what are you guys working on? Like, oh, can I volunteer for that study? Like, I'd love to come in and drink some caffeine and then go lift some weights, or I would love to come in and do a VO2 max test and then put on compression.
You'd love to do a VO2 max test?
Oh, dude, I loved it. I mean, it's I guess it fits the idea of why I like CrossFit, but like it's so cool to see how far you can go. Like it is. I guess I'm a little disturbed, and I like doing them, and I like running them. Like when I'm not the subject and I'm the researcher, but just everything about it is so cool to me. Like calibrating the machine and the intervals and the program. Like it's just all that stuff's cool. So I have all these conversations, so we get to know each other, and an opportunity comes up called Life After 55 Director, I think was the name of it. And basically what it was is it was a group that met, I think, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at like 9 a.m. And what it was a group throughout the community of Dubuque who would come, and it was entirely free. I think there might have been some funding from Silver Sneakers or something like that. But they would come into the facility there. Was called Graber. That's where we had all of our classes at, and we had this big gym floor, and they'd been doing it for, I think when I got there, at least 10 years. And so a lot of these people had done the same exercise routine 3 days a week for 10 years, and like it was just Groundhog Day. You walk in, and they put their stuff down, they have their little side conversations with their 4 or 5 friends, and then there's anywhere from 20 to like, I think it's sometimes 40 of them. A lot of it was seasonal. Some would go to Florida and be snowbirds, and they would just do the same thing and same thing and same thing. And so when I took over, it was like, hey, don't change anything. Like that's part of you getting this is you just go in, here is your script, and you just do the script. And I did for the most part, but I did it a few weeks. It's like, listen, this is as great as this is, and I think it's fantastic that they're moving and they need it, and their health is fantastic, and I had some 90-year-olds who were still getting after it, but I was like, what if I like change it up? And everybody's like, I don't think you should change it up, man. Like you might run everybody out of town. But I was like, well, I'm going to change things up, because I think a lot of what we do as strength and conditionists is how can we make this better, right? Like this is good.
Optimize it.
Right. Yeah. Like in some cases, get rid of the monotony, make it a little more fun. Right. So I had this idea, and it worked really well. I brought out tennis balls one day. Instead of doing our typical warm up, I said, hey, everybody grab a tennis ball. And they're looking at me, they're like, why do I need to grab a tennis ball? I was like, just grab a tennis ball. And so we work on some hand-eye coordination. I'm like, I just want you to bounce it and catch it. Bounce and catch it. Now I want you to go bounce, catch, and catch in this hand. And they're laughing, they're having a good time. We start playing catch with a partner, and I think I built that rapport. I think if I didn't build that rapport, you probably can't add that. But then I think they realized that like it really meant something to me. I took the time out of my day to brainstorm that idea because I thought it was important, right? And I was like, I think this is worthwhile, and the here is why. I gave them the here is why, because if I'm just like grab a tennis ball and start throwing it around, it's like, what does this kid know? Like he's a student. But I said, here is why, here are the benefits. It's going to help with your hand-eye coordination, and really, it's just going to be fun. Mm-hmm. And so we'd add a lot of things like that, and so that's when it was like, all right, like I was meant to, help others and share, what I think is so interesting. And I really like the challenge. Like I like the challenge of, making different programs. And so not to get too long-winded on that topic, but that led into me getting myself into some unique opportunities at Loras as well. So there was a guy by the name of Ryan Coaster that I played baseball with, and he was a strength and conditioning route as well. He's a year older than me, and he had done a lot of interning at our in our weight room, and he was kind of tasked with doing this, I guess, revitalize our baseball program a little bit, our strength conditioning. And not that it wasn't good, but just that idea of like, hey, we got some really cool ideas. He did an internship with the Iowa baseball team. It was like, hey, let's do these things. And so he was, grateful enough to kind of bring me on, and we, helped sit down with our strength coach of like, hey, here's some things that we thought, we would be really beneficial. This could be really fun. And what it led into was we created this challenge week essentially with our coaches, and our coaches took it and they ran with it. But basically we said there needs to be a point in our cycle where, testing your 1 rep back squat or deadlift or clean, like those are very important. Mm-hmm. But the reason you're training a team is to, build that team and that team camaraderie. And so we said, what if we did some challenges that were uncomfortable? What if we did some challenges that were outside when it was cold? And we did those things. Like we pushed, we did a relay where we were pushing, our gator at the field. We did relays where you had to carry cinder blocks a ridiculous distance, and everybody's getting their arms cut up, and it was cold and it sucked and it was awful, but you suffered together. Yep. And so I think that was, one piece of the puzzle. Like, man, like this is just cool, which is like, that's the coaching side, that's the strength conditioning side. That's, everything I think I had ever wanted. And then through this same professor, Dr. Beekler, I was able to do a couple of research studies, and one of the ones that I was one of the lead researchers on was we wanted to see what would happen if we took a really, really elite cross-country team and we gave them a little bit more on the strength and conditioning side, but divided them up into 2 groups, where one group did your traditional muscular endurance, which is what a lot of cross-country runners had previously done, which, you go in and, whatever exercise you're going to do 12 to 15 reps. Yep. And if you do, 12 to 15 reps, the weight's going to be light. And so the idea is we don't want to be super sore because we have to go for a run tomorrow, right? We have such a high volume of running.
Do 12 sets of 12 to 15 if you don't want to be super sore.
Right. Well, but the weight would never be very, very heavy to really induce a whole lot of soreness. And so,
but that's because you guys are keeping it not heavy, right? Because you don't want to induce soreness. I'm saying you could go heavier and be more challenging at a lower volume.
Right. So that's what I said, right? So that's where I come in, and a team of other students that I was working with, we kind of came in and, super fortunate that the coach, granted we had Dr. Beekler, who she does a lot of things with the running program. So she's trusted, like, she's not going to go to the coach with some wild, crazy idea with a bunch of kids that don't know what they're doing. It's just, hey, let's try this. So there was trust there. But we pitched this idea to him, and we're like, hey, like, we really think that, there's some research out there, and, if you kind of apply the logic to it, like, we think that if we take your athletes and we give them a different program, we're not going to crush them. We're not going to have them do anything insanely high level, but we're going to change the rep scheme a little bit. We are going to have them do some power cleans, and we're going to have them do some jumping, and we're going to have them do some things where they're going to be in uncomfortable positions, but they're also going to be training at a lower volume but a little bit higher intensity. Mm-hmm. Because I said, you're going to be running at a really, really, really high volume, but what if I can have you work at a different intensity that your kids don't typically work at unless you ask them to sprint? Right. And I was like, then when they're asked to sprint on what is typically a grassy, hilly, uneven course, they're going to be able to kick and possibly hold on to that longer than what somebody else is, right? And sure enough, we tested the pre, we tested the post, and the results of those that were in the group that did the plyometric based group, plyometric and power based group, had higher finishes, and also were able to have faster end of season times. Now, most people end up having faster end of season times, so you can almost say, well, that's not enough proof there. But what you can say is, when you talk to them, it's like, yeah, I felt really good at these portions of the race, and oh yeah, like, maybe I had some lingering knee soreness or something, but like when I did these different exercises, it was a lot better.
Yep.
Right? Because when you're running, you're always in that straight line. But at some point in cross country, you're not going to be in that straight line. Like the packs are thick. You have to push, you have to shove, and you might trip, you might fall. It can be a dogfight out there. So if you have that ability to kind of adapt and change your direction without rolling an ankle and being athletic, it seems to work, right? So it's really unique now because that was in 2019, and we had a poster that we took to the American College of Sports Medicine meeting in 2019 in Orlando, or maybe it was Minnesota, one of the two. And so, some people were talking to us about it, and they're like, oh, that's kind of nuanced, but like, that's a cool idea. I could see how that'd work. And now you see some of the behind the scenes with, I think this is a great thing about modern technology and media is like you're finally getting to see that behind the scenes of elite athletes that you've almost always longed for. Like, I love it. Like, I love going on Netflix and being able to watch, the behind the scenes of
Aaron Rodgers.
I don't want to watch that. I'm done with him.
Okay, good.
Go Pack, go. But regardless, I love seeing the behind the scenes. I just watched the Olympic basketball going for gold, and just the behind the scenes. And not that you didn't think that elite athletes were doing elite things, but my God, right? Like, and you're still not seeing all of it. Like, they're not going to give all their secrets. But my point I was making there is, like, now that we have some of this behind the scenes, and you have Instagram, you've got all these, athletes that are now becoming social media influencers. You see a lot of those high level athletes doing the things I just talked about, right? And so it's really unique to see an idea form into, like,
they're always a little behind the curve, though.
A little bit.
You were ahead of it, right? Like,
I don't know that I was necessarily ahead of it because I wasn't the first person to come up with it. I had, heard about it, but
I think their secret is that they're freaks. That's their secret.
That's
that
part of it.
Telling you.
I think that's part of it,
but I think it's good.
There's two pieces.
I do think that training's getting a lot better.
Oh yeah,
for athletes now. How many athletes take advantage of it is a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's the age-old question there, and it's only going to become more of a relevant question because maybe what taking advantage of it was 4 years ago isn't the same now,
right?
And so, like, almost to be where you would have been, 4 years ago, you have to be doing this right now, and so that's something that I wish wasn't the case because I love coaching because I want to share with you what I didn't have, but like at some point it's almost not enough anymore.
Yeah.
And if it is enough, they don't think it's enough, and now they've got 12 different sources that they went to, and yours isn't working fast enough, or somebody else said this, and somebody else is charging this, so they must know more. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's almost too much at some points.
So let's jump into what you do now. I forgot to mention that you coach softball now at Assumption High School.
Yep.
And how have you been able to? I know that you do some of the strength programming, right, for the softball team.
Yep.
So how have you been able to kind of take what you learned in school and through your experiences and kind of apply it to your team? I guess talk a little bit about your team in general too.
Yeah. So super fortunate. So when I got done playing baseball, you kind of are, like I said, you're not sure what your identity is. Now, I thankfully kind of knew where I was going, and I went and got my master's right away. It's like my identity is I'm a student right now, and I was a GA at St. Ambrose as well while I was getting my master's. So I still had that identity, but once that ended, I was kind of like, I need an athletic identity, right? Which is kind of how I got into the CrossFit world. But I was like, I don't want to do the slow pitch thing. I don't.
Why not?
I think just too competitive. Like, I think if other people weren't doing what I think that they should do or take it as serious as I think they should take it, like, that'd make me mad.
Yeah.
Like, it's an all or nothing.
I'm not a big guy on half measures. Like I'm just like, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it like as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And in slow pitch, like beer league softball especially is like the definition to me of like half measures.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Like, would you be better if you didn't drink? Yes. Okay. Well then.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so, sure, maybe I could have tried the fast pitch route, but I'm like, I think I just need to let baseball be baseball.
Yeah.
But I was like, I still want to coach it. And so I just kind of, left that on the back burner. I was like, I got to get my career going. And so finally I get to a point where I feel like I'm pretty well established. And Tyler Edwards, head coach, he's head coach now. He had reached out to me, said, hey, the former coach, Ron Farrell, is leaving. He's taking a gig, another college gig. Would you be interested in coaching? I was like, softball, huh? I mean, it's not that different. I mean, that's what he said. He's like, you played baseball. He's like, you can figure it out. He's like, it's not that different. I was like, well, that's fair. I'll do it. And so it was really fun because we we inherited an insane program. Mm-hmm. I mean, last year marked the 9th consecutive year that we've gone to the state tournament.
That's awesome. So you guys had already gone to state, 5 times or 6 times?
So this is our 3rd year. So yeah, when we inherited, it would have been
7 times?
Yep. They'd gone 7 times.
Wow.
And I would probably need to fact check this, but I've heard that they've never left worse than like a 3rd or 4th place. And there's 8 teams that go.
So a lot of culture there.
A lot of culture. And it's easy and I shouldn't say it's easy, but like it's easy to come into a program that already has that culture because they're already good and they know what to do, but you have to carry it on, right? Like you could very well be, responsible for ruining that culture, and you don't want that, right? Like you don't want to go somewhere that has a history of winning and now it's like, crap, they don't win. Like, what did I do?
Right.
Because nothing changed. The girls didn't change, but the coach changed. So maybe that's it, right?
Yeah, was it all the coach, right?
So anyway, we go there, and I really, really enjoyed it because we had a lot of things in place, but then there was a lot of things that we had autonomy on as far as like the off season, because not that they didn't do things in the off season, but they had done they had relied on just athletes being athletes, really high level athletes at that school, and so we said, well, how can we make these high level athletes higher level athletes? Yep. And so the weight room was the big thing. They weren't doing a whole lot in the weight room, and so we said once January hits, we're going to get them in the weight room. Here's what we're going to do. I mean, we spent hours, working on the program and the reasoning and what this cycle was going to look like versus the next cycle, and what things we were going to test at the beginning of the year and what things we're going to test at the end of the year. What is important to the game of softball? Why should we be squatting heavy? How does that translate? And then also developing a response to parents, because
you should squat heavy.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Kind of helps, right? But the hardest part was like we would have to have these conversations because Tyler and I knew why these things are important. He had, has been in this world a little bit, and just kind of by exercising himself and reading, he was always interested in it. And I went to school for it, and so kind of a match made in heaven there. But it was, how are we going to tell the parents? Because like parents are like, why are you having my daughter squat so heavy? Why are you having her jump? Why is she sprinting? Why is she doing all these things? Like, this is softball. Like, she's going to get hurt. It's like, no, like, we're going to do it the right way. Like, I don't let a kid grab a bar until I think they can handle a bar.
Do people think that girls get big legs just playing softball?
It's the weightlifting thing, right? Like, we're still battling, and it's getting a lot better, but people don't want to be bulky, and they don't want to, lose their mobility. Did you see that video I just
posted about Ashton Genty on the story?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I saw it with the spelling, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, dude, first of all, I mean, oh
Freak.
my God. I mean, Reese goes, he looks like he's wearing body armor.
Right? If you had any doubts about that guy being fit to be a top pick.
And he runs a 4.3. So it's like, my whole point was like, yeah, because we get that a lot. It's like, we don't want to get bulky. We just want to get, because that'll make him slow. We just want to, keep him lean and fast. And
right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And so anyways, it was, being patient, but we got the trust of the parents, and, the girls really bought in, but initially it was kind of that, like, ooh, I don't want to be bulky, and ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. But like, they started to see it. Like, we would test, and like, oh my God, like I've gotten like really fast. And then like we have the season, and they're like hitting balls to the gap, and they are like stealing an absurd amount of bases. And not that it's all us, because like I said, these girls are just freak athletes,
yeah.
But also they're driven. And so that was the thing, is like we got their confidence and we got their trust, and finally they saw that it worked. And now, like, this is our 3rd year doing it. And not that there isn't hard days and, girls are like, why are we doing this? But like, so many of them have seen the success, and it's like, they love it. We did max squats the other day, looking for a heavy one. We had like 6 girls hit over 200.
Wow.
And we had an 8th grader hit like 185. We had a group of 8th graders hit like 155 to 175. We had a freshman hit 200. We got girls squatting their body weight. And, some people would hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, like you're going to ruin them. You're going to burn them out. It's like, come talk to me in the summer when they're all state. Like, and that's a little arrogant, but like when they are that committed to getting up every day at 6 a.m. and working out with us and trusting that we're going to have the right program, and they get to the season and they trust that the 3-hour practice is worth it, like the success follows. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to say that when you have the history to back you up.
Yep.
But, we can point to all sorts of girls, and, this is why I love before and after pictures. And it's like, this girl came to us, and not that we're the only ones, but she plays other sports. So, like, they help too. And, she couldn't squat the bar. Or, she could barely run in a straight line, and now she has 27 stolen bases. She throws the ball 60 miles an hour, overhand. She's hitting 450. Like, yes, getting reps in the sport helps, but also like doing the other things outside of the sport. Now, the really unique thing where I really love is because we have that trust, they ask questions. And so now we've had really good conversations. We've even had some people come in and talk to the girls about, okay, I'm doing the weightlifting. I'm hitting on my own. I'm doing all these things that you told me to do. What else can I do? And it's like, well, nutrition. So like there's a lot of nutrition talks. And so I'll have girls come up to me like, hey, what should I have before a game, or what should I have after a game? It's like, you don't get those questions from just any kid, right? Like these are kids that want that extra.
They're trying to optimize everything,
right? Yeah, right. And then like, hey, my hips hurt. Like, could you show me some mobility exercise? And so we've got a mobility routine that we do regularly with them.
I would say, yeah, mine too.
Yeah, right. Well, you had a surgery, so you get an excuse, but it's just unique because when I was an athlete, it was, all right, go one more, which I still think is a good thing to have. Mm-hmm. But I didn't necessarily listen to my body as much as I probably should have, and I played through some things. I mean, I've had my fair share of cortisone shots in the shoulder and in my foot, and I
dive into that a little bit. Dive into the injuries that you've had. So
the shoulder is just a use thing. I think most baseball players can say that their shoulder hurts because, well, this throwing pattern isn't exactly natural. And the way that catchers throw,
1,000 gazillion times, right?
And the way catchers throw, which is a lot of volume, I understand that this throw doesn't seem like a lot, but you do that in a doubleheader, you got 400 or 500 throws on that arm every day. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, what do? We pop ibuprofen, and you keep playing because, like, I'm not going to miss because my arm hurts. Everybody's arm hurts, right? Deal with it. So I had, I did some therapy for it, and whatever. Now it gives me fits every once in a while, but it's fine. But then I developed a really interesting injury that kind of put my baseball career in the balance a little bit. I had some really weird foot pain my senior year, and even in my junior year, my shoulder had been a problem, and I had a couple other issues, and so my body was breaking down a little bit, and I'd done a lot of the extra work except for the mobility, right? Like that stuff always came later, and then
because it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere.
I know.
That's why I personally think that I slacked off, because I like seeing progress.
I know, and
it doesn't feel like you're doing anything.
Right, it doesn't. But like that's one of those things that you can't see what the benefit is, but you got to trust there's a benefit. Yeah. So that's one of the things I try to preach to all my athletes is like, we're going to train hard, but we're going to recover harder. Mm-hmm. Because if I can't have you on the field to do what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter how much you squat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So anyway, I had, battled some injuries, and just kind of kept going and going and going. And my senior year, we get back from winter break, and I've got this weird pain in my heel, and whatever, like I got weird pain everywhere, right? Like it'll be gone tomorrow. We're going through our preseason, or well, I guess it's in season, but like our first few practices fully in season in January, and we're inside, and I'm like, man, like my shins hurt, like only on this right leg, and then my ankle's hurting and my heel's hurting. I'm like, what is up with my foot? Like maybe it's just because we're running on the hardwood. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. So I'm getting treatment, and they're thinking, oh, maybe it's some plantar fasciitis, and so we kind of run with that. All right, it's plantar fasciitis, great. So we get treated for that, get the custom orthotics, and popping ibuprofen before, getting E-stem, getting heat, Graston, whatever. Nothing
All them
happened.
Band-Aids.
All them Band-Aids, right?
Yep.
Like, and they didn't do anything. And so we keep going, and finally, like, well, let's just put you to boot. Let's shut you down for a little bit. I'm like, all right, so we shut down for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and I'm in a walking boot. And of course, I don't sit. I mean, so I'm in the weight room, and one of my buddies has a video of it to this day. Like, we get done with practice, and I go to the weight room, and I kick up, and I just start doing handstand push-ups because I'm like, I got to do something. And I'm sitting in a chair, I'm doing curls, I'm pressing. I'm like, dang it, like, I'm going to be ready. And like, I figure out how to row, like, not using my foot. And I'm like, listen, I'm not going to just sit here and let this thing, beat me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so part of that was maybe not resting as much as I should. And I was like, oh, let's get out of it. I'm good. So then I go play, and I go back in the boot. I go play, and I'm back in the boot. And at this point, my foot is just trashed. Like, I developed a massive hammer toe on my second metatarsal, super swollen. Like, I mean, double the size of my other toes. My heel, like, just my whole foot was just red. Like, I couldn't walk. I couldn't flex off my toes. I was just walking like I had a club foot. I was still playing somehow, still catching. But it was like everybody knew. Like, everybody knew that I was going through some stuff. And so kind of made it through, kind of not really. I graduate, still have the issue. I get to St. Ambrose for my master's, and I'm in a walking boot. I'm like, man, like, how many times am I be in this freaking thing? I was in it so much I bought my own. Like, I stopped renting one. I was like, I'm going to be in this the rest of my life. And so at this point, it's going on for 3 years.
Should have got a scooter.
I had one. So they got me on a scooter because I needed to be non-weight bearing when I think the first or second time they initially did it, because they got an x-rays, like, you got stress fractures in like 3 of your toes, and like in your heel, like in your actual heel bone, like one of your most dense bones, you got a stress fracture there. Like, how does that even happen? Right. So I'm on a scooter, and, or I was on a scooter, and then I'm like, screw it. I don't want a scooter. I'll do the crutches. So I'm crutching around. I'm on this boot, and it just sucks, man. I'm going to every specialist possible. I go to podiatrists. I go to pain specialists. I go to orthopedic surgeons, and everybody's just like, I don't know. And we got to the point where one guy was like, I can just open it up and go look. And I was like, well, that we might just do that, because at this point, like, I can't do much. Like, I want to be able to go play golf. I want to be able to, run. I was doing a lot of biking. I was like, I want an Olympic lift. I want to do all these different things, and I couldn't do those. And that just sucked. And so finally we got to a point where they're like, all right, we don't know what's up, but we're going to send you to go get some blood work, and we'll have a rheumatologist look it over. At some point, I don't know how, but I developed psoriatic arthritis, and it blew everybody's mind. They're like, well, you didn't really have the signs and symptoms for it, but like, whatever the markers are on the blood work, you got it. And it's like off the charts. So I go in for a consultation. He tells me what he thinks. He says, here's the treatment. We're going to get you on Humira. I'm going to give you an injection. We're just going to see what happens. I mean, within like a couple of days, man.
It was way better.
Way better. And so, like, 1, relieved. 2, upset, because I'm like, all I needed was a stupid injection of Humira, and I would have been able to play. I would have had no problems. Last 3 years would have been a breeze, right? But I think I learned a lot going down that stretch, because one, I learned the importance of, one, listening to your body. In this case, this probably wasn't something I was going to have a lot of control over. Like, I'm not going to be able to self-treat, psoriatic arthritis because I'm doing mobility. I'm stretching afterwards. However, the development of that psoriatic arthritis, some people theorize that, maybe it was dormant, and, maybe I had a fall or something happened that kind of sparked it. Who knows? So maybe I could have done something down the stretch to prevent that. But it just taught me a lot. It taught me, a lot about perseverance, and, not taking advantage of the body at a young age, because I was like, I'm young, I'm fit, it's fine. But then, like, I very quickly wasn't very young and wasn't very fit, because I had 3 years where I was pretty much on the shelf, and I would go to the gym and do what I could, but like, I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Right.
And that was awful. And this was during, COVID as well. And so it was just awful, because you're stuck inside. I want to go outside and run or do whatever. And it's like, I can't. And so, one, not taking granted of your body, which is why I think I move so much now, because I just like not being in pain. I like being able to move, and I like being able to use my body. And not that I don't have soreness and aches here, but like,
you probably shouldn't keep pushing your Olympic lifts then.
You'll be fine. I mean, they're not. I don't think I'm not lifting heavy enough to do any damage. We'll be fine.
All right,
we'll be fine.
So, anyways, back to softball. You guys have got second in state last year, right?
Last 2 years. So Tyler and I,
Pretty good.
pretty good, really good. Trying to get that state title. They had one 3 years ago, I believe. Maybe excuse me. It was 4 years ago. That was their last state title 4 years ago.
So what do you
hopefully
have
get one.
what do you have your softball players do that maybe we could take away from this, or even like things that maybe you would have done if you were a baseball player again? What kind of just the broad things that maybe you're having them do?
Yeah.
What's their training consist
I'll
of?
keep it broad just in case we got some competitors listening. You know,
Yeah.
this is our competitive edge right here.
Yeah, there
right?
you go.
So no, nothing that we're necessarily having them do is outside of the box. It's things that high level college programs are doing, and so we're open to a lot of ideas, and we have some contacts and follow some really good sources and kind of brainstorm and get ideas. But it's the consistency and it's the schedule for us. Like we have them start in January, and sure, you could say the programming's fantastic or you say the programming's whatever. But it's the act of getting up at 6 a.m. that I think is one of the bigger takeaways, because you're teaching these girls accountability.
It's what it takes.
Right?
You're teaching them what it takes.
Right? Like, hey, if you want to be good and you're coming to a program where we have really high standards for you, like we want to win and we're going to teach you how to win, but we need you here 3 days a week at 6 a.m. or then we need you doing work on your own hitting, because guess what? If you're not doing it, somebody in that program will, and there's going to be an 8th grader who's going to come up and take the world by storm, and we're going to plug her into a position because she's too good not to be, and then she's going to learn that position. She's going to hit 500 at state and be an all-state player as an 8th grader. This happened last year. Her name was Sophie Cottle. She's, fantastic player, but she was that kid who just kept working, and she's like, I love this. I love that we get up. I love that we lift. I love that you guys hold us accountable. And then boom, all-state as an 8th grader.
Crazy.
She's got 4 years left.
Crazy.
And she's got sisters.
Younger?
Younger.
Crazy, dude.
Right? So
got the pipeline.
Right? So anyway, and we've got a lot of really good girls. I mean, my first year we had an 8th grader by the name of Marissa Boynton. Same thing. We kind of taught her how to play left field because she was too good not to play, like not to be on the bench. So it's like you have to be in the lineup, and now she's going to be a 5-year starter. And so those are just things that you can do when, one, you have 8th graders, which not every state, actually really no state allows 8th graders except Iowa in the summer.
Did you go look that up after yesterday?
No.
Because I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. And then,
no, Iowa's proposing to make it a thing in other sports to let 8th graders play, but that's
so just softball right now?
Well, in baseball. Summer sports, because like you leave 8th grade and you're like transitioning into your freshman year.
I see. So it's technically supposed to be like post. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you're not a middle schooler anymore, but you also haven't started high school. And so it's
okay. I got you.
Yeah, and I think one of the big reasons, at least for my takeaway, is it allows us to have lower divisions like freshman softball and JV, because it helps fill those numbers.
Yeah, for sure. I like it.
Anyway, teaching them how to have success, get up at 6 a.m., that accountability. But then it's that routine. It's like they come in, it's the same warm up, but it's paying attention to little details. Like I think I've told them this. It's like this programming is good. These exercises are good. I have you warm up for a certain reason, because that's how you get your body prepared, your mind and your body prepared. I was like, but you giving and having that attention to detail is the most important thing, because that learned attention to detail is what you're going to take to the actual season. Like you're going to pay attention to our pre-practice routine, how we throw, how we catch, how we run. What do we do on the bases? What do we do in this count? Like your attention to detail and how you warm up at 6 a.m. on a cold, dark morning in January is what you're going is how you're going to have attention to detail and get ready for a game come June.
Right.
And so we have them go through a pretty standard warm-up routine. We have them just do some generic warm-up running around, and then we do some dynamic warm-up followed by some agility. We do some ladders, and it's not so much because that's how you become fast. It's just I want you to be able to move in different planes, in different directions, right? Like, no, I don't think ladders are going to develop your speed, but I do think that it's going to prepare you for the workout that I wrote for you. And then we go in and we like to lift heavy, but we can't lift heavy until we've taught you how to lift heavy properly. And so, we start with usually a higher volume. Okay, it's January. We don't need you to lift super heavy right now, but we're going to get there. And so we squat with them. We have them deadlift. We do teach them a power
You have them
clean.
deadlift. Oh my god.
Yeah, right. Hex bar. Isn't that crazy?
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people won't, like a lot of schools won't even deadlift.
Yeah, I'm a big hamstring guy. I mean, if you want somebody to be fast and explosive, and you're not, training your hamstrings, man, like it's not the deadlift that's the problem. It's how you're doing the deadlift. Like,
or it could be the load that they're doing the deadlifts at.
Right. I mean, and I think that's that's part of why when I get the girls in the weight room, we take them over. Usually our young ones who haven't done any deadlifting with us, and it's, you are not going to deadlift until you can do a good morning. And then once you can do a good morning, I got to see some form of RDL. And then at that point, maybe I feel confident I can put a dumbbell in your hand, and then maybe I can put a hex bar in your hand. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to just jump to the hex bar because that's what everybody else is doing.
Right. There's a progression.
Right. And if you don't have a progression, then I think maybe we're just following what somebody else did. Like, I think social media is dangerous in the sense that you see what they're doing at stage like 8, not at like stage 1. Like, we don't show the work that got up to this individual doing these really perfect form 135-pound deadlifts. No, you got to see where it's at. And that might be frustrating for some people because, like, I want to work hard. This isn't very hard. But trust me, we won't have an injury if you let me do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of our girls, that's kind of been, the concept of like, hey, for the most part, there's always freak accidents.
Sure.
In the game of softball. It's like, we are a pretty healthy team. And a lot of it we attribute because we build these girls and we want them to be strong. We encourage them to be strong. Like, we want their legs to be strong. We don't want your knees to be weak and you find yourself in a weird position and, instead of being able to get out of it with maybe a little bit of a tweak, you tear your ACL, right? Or you find yourself, in a swing and you dislocate your shoulder. Maybe your shoulder doesn't dislocate if, we did the proper things in the weight room, right? And so most of our girls, for the most part, are healthy.
Right.
Most of the season. The season is a grind, man. Like, anybody that played baseball, softball, like, sure, there's not a ton of, stress on an individual play, but the volume that is on your body, like throws every single day and running every single day and cutting and turning, it's like, that's a lot on a body. And it's also 100 degrees outside, and you got the sun beating down on you for 6 hours. It's like, there's a lot of stress.
Yep.
If you look at our girls, they look like they have been in the weight room all year. They don't lose any ability to play softball.
They're built for that season.
They're built for that season. Like, they walk around, it's like, my Lord, like, what are they eating? It's like, no, it's what they're doing, man.
Exactly.
Like, and it's not some wild concept, but for some people it is, right? Like, they don't see that and they're like, that's what a softball player looks like. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what they should look like. Like, you go look at the college level and then you tell me that, right? Like, these girls are, they have that competitive advantage. Like, they have bought into what we have dedicated so much time to and so much effort to, and they're like, oh, this works.
College athletes look different than high school athletes.
Right.
And until parents and kids get that through their head, it's like, oh, I'm big. I'm already big enough. I don't need to get bigger. It's like, yeah, because you're comparing yourself to other high school athletes, right? You might be relatively big to them, but you'd be puny on the college level, right? So I think a lot of people just compare themselves. If you want to play college softball or any college sport, you need to start comparing yourself to those athletes. And it's like, hey, what do I need to improve to? What is the biggest difference between me as an athlete and this college athlete? And usually it's not a skill. Usually it's physical traits. At least in my experience, the players that are going to go play college sports, a lot of times they're very skilled. Yeah. It's just the difference is they are not physically capable of doing the things that these other girls are.
Some of the things that you measure in baseball and softball is speed, right? Like, how fast can you throw if you're a pitcher? How fast can you throw, right? And you usually see pitchers become a lot faster when they get to college, when they're on a program with somebody telling them to do this. Here's what you should eat. Here's how you recover. And they gain like 5-6 miles an hour. Like, oh my God, like, wow, what a great college program. It's like, what a great, I don't know, routine and all just like lifting and like doing the things that we know work. They work for high schoolers too.
So there's like, I've talked about this on a lot of podcasts, but basically I oversimplify performance and I say like it's A plus B equals C. A is skill, B is physical traits, C is results. So like you can have athletes who have very high skill, low physical traits, they're still going to be pretty good, right? And some have extremely high skill, and you can think of different athletes, maybe professional athletes that have been able to overcome their lack of physical traits. with just extreme degrees of skill, right? Most athletes, though, need to have a combination of high B, high A, high B. Same thing with, sorry, I should go back and say, same thing as there's a lot of athletes that have really high physical traits, maybe lower skill. So in basketball, again, my sport, I think of guys like Dwight Howard, right? Maybe even Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like guys whose physical traits were just so outstanding that like it didn't matter that Shaq couldn't shoot a free throw, because he's just going to back you down and dunk on you. Right. And so the skill level wasn't high. Now, again, could he have been better, if his physical trait or his skill was higher? Jokic, skill extremely high. Physical traits, maybe not so much. If you could combine Shaq and Jokic, I mean, what is that? That's the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, and I think you could say Jokic already is working towards that. I mean, he's as much as people want to say that him and Luka aren't physically fit, like physically fit for a sport versus physically fit for life are two different things. Like you see him walking down the street, doesn't look like much.
But I'm saying
right?
he can't jump 40 inches. His vertical is like 20 something.
But he also doesn't need to jump 40 inches.
But you can't argue
he can
that
shoot a three.
If he could jump higher, he would be better.
Potentially. I mean, I don't think that's everything for him and the way that he plays. Like he has developed a skill set based off of his body
because he's right. I'm saying if that man could run faster, jump higher.
Well, sure, who couldn't? Yeah,
right. So that's the point that I'm making is like I think that what most girls or most kids in high school they've done their whole lives since they were little kids, myself included. All we do is work on the skill of the sport.
Right.
It's what we lack is usually the physical traits, right? Like I could shoot lights out. If I could have ran faster and jumped higher, I would have been a much better basketball player. But all I could do is shoot lights out, right? And so, anyways, I just think that that's the part that's usually missing.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to this, and then we can wrap up. But this is why I really think that there is a lot of value in kids doing gymnastics. Not that I'm like some proponent of gymnastics and I was a high level gymnast, like not even a little bit. Like I'm not even sure I made it. A year doing it. But that is one capacity where kids are forced to move their bodies and like kind of start to do a little bit of resistance training if you think about it. Like there's a lot of eccentric components to gymnastics. And they have to get, uncomfortable, so to say, but they're in a lot of different positions. They have to figure their way out through those positions. So you see some of these kids walking around and you're like, man, like what's that kid doing? And they're like, oh, nothing. Like they're just doing gymnastics. Like there's this kid at my school that I teach and I mean, he looks like a little ninja, and he's got like a 12-pack, and he's a third grader. But it's because his parents they let him do anything physical. Like the kid lives outside. He runs a bunch. They have him in gymnastics class, and they drive to Cedar Falls for a ninja warrior type like course.
That's cool.
And the kid is just so strong. And I do a plank test with all my elementary kids, and he can plank for an hour.
That's awesome.
Granted, he's lightweight, but he has learned how to move his body, which is going to only put him ahead of those because when he gets to whatever sport he decides, if he decides that route, he'll be able to work on the skills, and his body's already going to be at a point. His
physical traits are already very high.
They're already very high. And so if he can keep working on those, let them grow together, that's how you get pretty freak athletes, right? Absolutely. I think we agree on that. So,
all right, last question. What's your unfair advantage? What's the one thing that you've either developed over time or you were born with that you feel like helps you kind of succeed in life?
I think it's just adversity. I mean, learning to handle adversity at a young age. I think I was maybe 11, maybe 12, and my parents got divorced. But the thought pretty quickly was, yeah, they're divorced, but like you're not the first person to go through this. And so, maybe that's a little extreme, and I'm not going to necessarily go up to somebody and say, hey, suck it up. Everybody goes through this.
I mean, you're one of 50%. I mean, at this point, it seems like.
Yeah, and so I just
one of two.
I just told myself, it's like, you got an option. I was like, you can either dwell on it or you could just keep going. And for a little bit, I did dwell on it. I was super angry. I was a really angry kid, and then I was like, this isn't worth it. I'm either going to develop a reputation or I'm going to lose out on things that I don't want to lose out on, all because I'm mad. Like, let's just move on. And so I think you found that when I had a lot of injuries and even my foot. You could say that's somewhat stubborn, but also like I'm not going to let that define me. I'm going to find a way out of this, and if I don't find a way out of something, well, what's the next path, right? Like I love, not that. I wish it didn't happen, but I love looking at stories of people who, maybe had a really, really catastrophic injury. And I had mentioned my uncle is a physical therapist, and he's also in the Army Reserves, and he's gone on countless trips overseas, and he usually goes to a clinic and he's working with soldiers returning or who had returned from battle or something, and it's usually fairly extreme. Like they've got a prosthetic of some sort, or 2 prosthetics or whatever it is. But seeing them turn that corner and just either basically telling themselves like, there's nothing that I can gain from dwelling on this. And like, it happens, man. Like, it sucks that it happened, but like the fact is it happened. Like, if you could move on, who knows what you'd be missing out on if you didn't move on. Like, and I love telling, our softball girls of like, so what? Like, flush it. Who cares? Like, you struck out once. There's 3 at bats left. If all you think about is that first at bat or how you made a bonehead play, like that's all you're thinking about the rest of the game. And now you have five of those for the rest of the game. You have 5 strikeouts. But if you forget about it and just screw it, man, like that's part of the game. That's part of any sport, right? If you can learn from those failures and just move on, whatever, don't care. That's how you get better.
It's almost like when you're a kid and like I used to, if I felt like somebody was not as good at me, I would like, if I was playing one-on-one, I'd let them get up like 10-0.
Just for a challenge?
Yeah, for the challenge. So it's like you can look at this as like, oh, I've struck out 3 times already.
Right.
It's a challenge. I got 2 at-bats left.
Right.
Let's get a hit.
Yeah. Everybody has challenges. It's just how you handle that challenge is, either you're coming out on top or you're just going to.
That's probably the biggest thing. I think if anybody wants to be successful, it's like you're going to go through stuff. You need to be aware of that in the beginning so that when it happens, you just keep going.
Yeah. Failure is a privilege. Like if you're not failing, you're not trying.
I like that. Sweet, dude. Appreciate it.
Yep.
We'll have you on again soon.
Look forward to it.
We made it through this time.